And welcome back to Have You Seen with Nick and Lance. This month's my turn, and I picked a movie that no one has ever heard of called Faces in the Crowd with Milla Jovovich. A movie I bought because I was going through, would have been Best Buy probably a decade ago, and probably saw it facing out. It said Milla Jovovich on the front, and I'm like, I'm gonna buy that movie. And that's the only reason why I bought it.
I've decided that Milla Jovovich is like the female Nick Cage. She's just in a lot of like obscura movies.
Maybe, but
Milla, why'd you pick this movie? I like being in movies.
I mean, I think it was she also picked this one because it's not an action woman movie. She was getting known for Resident Evil and being thrown in kind of kick-ass, jump around, shoot things kind of style of movies. And this one, she was just like a woman.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
And it's a reason to untypecast yourself.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
Yes, we'll get into this particular movie, which I guess so we tend to give our scores in at the beginning, so that you can, if you've never seen the movie before, you kind of get an idea of what we think about it, and then you can go watch the movie. It says it's on Freevee. I didn't watch it on Freevee because I have the ad-less version right here, and then I gave you this one to watch just so you wouldn't have to sit through ads. Because I had a feeling if you had to sit through ads and this movie, you would have hated this movie. Whereas I'm assuming you just kind of didn't like this movie. That's my prediction. Is I wasn't handing you this movie because I'm like, Lance is going to love this movie. I want to talk about this movie because who the fuck has ever heard of Faces in the Crowd?
And who is going to find this video on YouTube?
People who already know us.
This is a video in the crowd.
Yes. So we tend to give our scores, get you an idea of what you think. You go find it on Freevee. And I think it's interesting enough for one watch, and that's probably about it.
I might have created a little tie. Oh no!
But Lance, what would you give Faces in the Crowd from 0 to 10?
I would give this movie I give it a 4.
Oh shit! See, he's probably going to give it a 4, but I need to round up because Lance likes movies.
I like to try and see.
Yes, I was thinking you were probably going to give it a 4, but then I was just like, let me just be a little bit more generous because sometimes Lance tends to bump up one higher than
A
that.
5 would be I might watch this movie again if it was on TV, kind of a thing. But I think this one for me was just kind of a one and done, and I'll explain why.
Sure.
How about you, Nick?
That's a 5.
It's a 5?
It's fine.
Yeah, I went way too high.
Oh no, there's nothing. I think the most interesting thing about the movie is the idea of it, which I think is kind of the main reason I want to talk about it. Is it does, it's like a spoiler warning, it does stuff in this movie that I think is very interesting.
It definitely has a unique take on psychological movies.
Yeah, because it's a thriller where a murder mystery, like the main character Anna is a witness to a murder, and then like he comes after her and she falls off a bridge, bangs the back of her head, and then loses the ability to distinguish faces, which is prosopagnosia or face blindness. And it's kind of an interesting thing that through the rest of the movie, whenever she runs into characters, they're played by different people. And that's a neat way to kind of simulate...
Multiple different people, too.
Yeah, and it'd be like in the same scene, you might get another person playing that character. So as an audience member, it's kind of like, you have to... I recognize her because she's got red hair. And I recognize her because she's got the long black hair and she speaks with like that French accent or whatever.
Sure, but like the thing that really kind of bothered me about the movie is I get that you're having a hard time with the facial features and everything like that, but it's like the hair has got to stay the same.
That's what it is, yeah.
But the actors and actresses they picked for some of those people when they'd have them stand in for who they originally were, their hair was completely fucking different.
I think it's wigs, so it just kind of, it wasn't done perfectly.
Yeah, well, I mean, that would have been the one thing I would have tried to get right as the director, is at least have the stand-ins. They don't have to look anything like the original actor, just at least be able to get the hair.
Yeah.
Because she even says a point in the movie where they're like, well, you can't recognize me, or we're like your oldest friend. She's like, I know you because of the slutty way you dress and like the way you wear your hair.
Yeah.
You know, the unique haircut you have. But like the guy that was Victor Von Doom in the movie, the fucking... hardest nails detective with a heart of gold.
As a Jason McMahon or something like that.
Yeah, he has
Julian McMahon.
Yeah, but he has like the goatee and has very like very discernible haircut in this movie.
Yeah.
And then when they change him up, like the person they kept picking, like the hair was nowhere near like the actor. It was weird. It
Yeah.
was just really strange. I'm sorry, please.
No, I think it's interesting. An interesting concept in order to throw the audience off is that you don't have the same actor play the same role twice, except for Milla Jovovich and Julie McMahon. And I guess they also have
Until he cuts off the goatee.
yeah, and then they also have the killer surprise was Lanian. They show him several times being the same person when it is the two detectives interacting with each other. But whenever it's time for him to interact with Anna, then he's being played by somebody else.
Yeah, it's stuff like that that I thought was just a little disjointed for me. I mean, it kind of rammed home the whole idea of like being face blind, but I don't know. Like when they kept switching the actor and the hair didn't match up, I was just kind of like, But then when the detective who conveniently shaved off his fucking goatee with a
straight
razor,
Yeah.
like I knew, or I thought I knew, like right from the rip who the fucking killer was.
Did you think it was him, or
I thought it was him because his face never changed, and she saw his face, and his face never changed.
like burned into her memory?
Yeah, so I thought, this is the face I saw before I got this condition. That's why his face never changed. And then when he shaves off the goatee and his face changed, and she's like, "You're not special,"
It's just you had that really stupid goatee that made me
focus in on you.
stand the fuck out.
Yeah, and she's like, but like the things I didn't like about the movie is like the first time he meets her when she goes in to like give her statement, he's a fucking douchebag.
He's a fucking dick.
And then later on in the movie, he's like, "First time I saw you laying in the bed, helpless and blah, I knew I loved you and blah."
That doesn't need to. That part didn't really need to exist.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that was really disjointed in the movie. The convenience of the person who ended up being the killer was just a very tired and played out reason. And then the things like the kid that was with him that watched him murder his mom. But like, I don't know, he's psychiatrist. He got into his fucking head to where the kid never talked or whatever. But the kid does the shh thing to her at one time to make him seem kind of fucking weird. Like there was a lot of stuff that was just way too convenient of a payoff in the movie. Her just happened to go down the bridge where she fucking hit her head and saw the killer for the first time.
I mean, if she doesn't do that, there's not a movie.
Sure.
So there needs to be maybe initial conveniences at the beginning to get why are we following this lady? Because she went down the bridge and banged her head.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be following her.
But they tried to give it like a mystic bent where she was reading her fucking horoscope saying, "A meeting a mysterious stranger will take you down a path of blah." And it was just like, I was honed in on those little things at the beginning to tell me the story, but that's not what happened. So I felt like that was kind of a jerk off in one particular direction. I didn't care about her boyfriend.
No.
The killer having her cell phone and then slipping it in her boyfriend's pocket. But then later on, after her phone ends back up in the jacket pocket, the killer is still able to text his detective buddy and her, making it look like it was coming from their cell phones. So it's like, how did he spoof the numbers without having her old cell phone? Or I don't know. Like there was just, maybe I'm overthinking it, and I'm definitely overthinking it. But it was just, there was a lot of stuff where they try to kind of like take you in one direction, and then the reveal at the end that it was his partner. Like I thought it was him. And when she was like digging through her mind, and she was like, when she was hypnotized, and she was like, he was in the room when they do the lineup. In that particular shot where she was like, he was in the room, it was behind the glass, and you could see
the reflection
of the detective, the love interest. And I thought that would have been such a good thing.
If it was him.
If it was him, and she was like, he was in the room, but it was only because of his reflection made him look like he was in the room.
Yeah.
I thought that would have been such a good payoff if he would have in fact been the killer.
I think so. Wasn't he on that side of the glass?
He's
too?
the one that took them into the room.
He was on the other side, but brought them in the room. Okay.
Yeah. So he's the one that brought them into the room.
I think that was initially as a fake out or whatever. It's like, ooh, it's Julian.
Yeah, but it's just I was so disappointed in the ending. I was so disappointed in the lines at the end where it was like, I guess you're not going to be taking her to the cop ball after all.
Yeah.
And then the blood like blooms on his on his chest, and she's like, there's not going to be another one like you. He's like, I'm just a face in the crowd. And I was like, you got the titular line.
The titular line of Face of the Crowd.
But yeah,
I think, for the most part, I think this movie's like a 4. But the interesting stuff in it bumps it up to a 5 for me.
well, I had never heard of The Condition before.
Which apparently, there are a few famous people that know it. I can't remember his name at the moment now. And I love him too. Stephen Fry has face blindness or some level of it.
Really?
It's famous people with prosopagnosia who was there. I thought I'd heard that Penn Jillette had it, but he wasn't. I didn't see it listed for him, so maybe it was just something I'd read, but it's not necessarily true. But I guess 1 in 20 people have some level of prosopagnosia.
I think Penn Jillette is just so pretentious. He just doesn't intentionally remember people's faces.
No, I don't.
Don't get me wrong. I fucking love Penn and Teller, but he does seem like he seems like he's a lot to deal with.
Maybe.
I think Penn Jillette is one of those people that he knows he's the smartest person in the room, and 9 times out of 10, he's probably right.
He's probably right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, like the idea of face blindness and trying to wrap your head around it. And I think it's probably similar to me trying to explain aphantasia to people where I'm like, yeah, I don't have a mind's eye. And I'm like, what is that like? So what is it like when you look in the mirror and you don't recognize yourself? Like you could walk, I mean, you've got context clues, but you have to use context clues. You can't just look in the face and immediately know.
But she kept getting herself back here and there.
I think, whenever she looked in the mirror, it was always
somebody else. But then like there was that whole thing where she like was shaking her head and like looking, and then finally she got herself back and was like, there I am, you know. But like it was just, I don't know, like in the beginning when she woke up and she was like, who are these people? And like the camera, we see the actors, but to her you see these strangers. And at first I was like, what the fuck are they doing right now? You know, like, is this going to be some kind of like weird experiment where like, you know, they're sending in different people to be like, oh no, we're totally your friends, you know? And then they explained the hook, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. And I thought we were in for a good time. And then
the concept is interesting. The rest of the movie kind of falls short a little bit.
The movie definitely had high ideals, but it did not stick the landing, as it were.
No. But there's still stuff in it that I think is pretty cool. I like that Lane, whatever, punches Julian in the face, and he's got like the blood, and then he looks in the mirror and he's like, oh shit, I can make a goatee out of it. Now she'll recognize me. And that was enough for her to kind of be like, oh, she's got the goatee, and that wasn't to kind of tell them apart. And then the rain starts and it washes away, and you see his face melt away to it being like unrecognizable to her. I'm like, that's interesting. It's not how prosopagnosia works, but it's interesting.
Well, the even worse part about it was when the killer was like trying to get her out to the alleyway as her ex-boyfriend. But then when he figures the jig is up, he takes off the jacket to look exactly in the same clothes as the fucking other detective. So it's like, how does he know that's what he's wearing? But then like when they're like, no, it's him. He's the one. I'm the person. He's the one. It's the same actor with the different face. But it's like, and that's where I guess I keep coming back to the hair thing. It's just like, just look at the fucking hair. And maybe you'll be able, but like the hair on both of them was the exact same. Yeah. So that's where I was just kind of like, meh. It was just,
it's fine. It's okay.
Yeah, it was fine. The movie
with the neat concept. Sometimes you can definitely tell like this movie's ADR to high hell because you kind of have to. They keep the same voice actor, which you can definitely notice with like the doctor who was deaf or whatever, the one that was kind of like, here's all the stones or whatever. She's got a very distinctive voice. So it was very easy, even in multiple scenes, to kind of pick out her voice, whereas like her random boyfriend or whatever, I couldn't tell his voice from...
Me either.
Bryce. Because he's just a dude.
Yeah, and he's kind of a doucher. But it's like, I kind of really wanted to like him, because he seemed like he was like a very compassionate, pretty interesting person in the beginning.
But then you kind of...
But then he sees her kissing another guy that happens to be wearing the same exact tie he is, which I'm guessing was the murderer.
I don't know. Maybe it was.
Because he's the one that had champagne. And she's like, I don't like the champagne.
I thought it was just some random dude.
It could have been, but like at the end of the movie, they do that whole thing again where he sits down as Bryce again, and she's like, Bryce, I don't like champagne. So I kind of feel like maybe that was the bad guy detective stalking her at that point. But it was just, I wanted to like the movie, but it was just,
It's weird.
it's weird.
It's not written super well.
It had, whoever put that together saw this condition and was like, we could make a really interesting murder mystery with this. And then as they started writing the script, I have a feeling someone was like,
This is what I got.
this is going to take a lot of work
Yeah.
to do this. Because if I was the director of that movie, the only thing I would have made sure was that the hairstyles, because if you're going to hone in on the fact that the goatee makes you stand out to where you could see the person's face, then that specifically says it's about certain facial features. And if like I have a fucking mohawk,
Yeah.
then you should be able to pick out that I'm a mohawk.
Well, most of the people had fucking generic.
Her friends didn't.
Yeah, and she spotted her friends often.
Yeah, but like, and that's the
So
one.
you had the weird, the red hair that was kind of like different lengths, and then you had the girl with the long black hair that with the accent. The accent was really what did it for me.
Yeah, it was kind of a poofy, kind of like '80s girl hair look, the anti-grab hair.
Yeah.
But
Which I wonder if maybe the initial actors, they used their real hair and then they tried to wig them for the rest of them. And that's why it looks slightly off. Because you can always tell, like, this woman looks like she's wearing a weird wig.
well, I feel like they can do this movie now.
Yeah.
Like they would be able to do this better, like with the deep fakes, where they try to make it look like the person, but it looks really disjointed.
That could be.
But then you give it like the worst deep fake treatment you can give it to make it like
Or you just keep the same actor, but always like deep fake their face.
yeah,
To something slightly different.
yeah. I think they could make this movie 100 times better now, and it would pay off a lot better in the end.
Yeah. With just a different order to the story, maybe. Because it's all, I guess, kind of cliche. Like, who the killer was actually the police detective's partner. Okay. It's not doing new ideas. The new idea is how they chose to show prosopagnosia, which was interesting. And it's not really how it would work. It's not like you see a new face every time you see somebody. You just don't recognize the face. So it's not like having sex with a new person every time you see their face. It's having sex with a stranger every time. Where it's just you look at them like, I don't know who the fuck this person is.
Well, if it was
so
like
you've got to do things to make yourself... Like if your friend is prosopagnosia, maybe don't cut your hair and then walk up and be like, hey, how's it going? Maybe walk up to them being like, hey, it's me, I cut my hair. And like, hey, it's Nick, I cut my hair. What do you think of it? And then let them understand, be compassionate with people who have this, and kind of like don't just think they're rude.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, I wanted to try and give the movie the benefit of the doubt, but it's like, if she's like, you get to have sex with a different guy every night, that's awesome. But it's like, you showed me that thing on the computer.
Yeah.
Before that, where the person's like mouth was upside down and shit, that'd be fucking horrifying.
Well, that's just kind of there's a couple different ways to kind of simulate prosopagnosia. I think if you can find, essentially you have to isolate just the face, because you can use context clues to identify people. So you have the face isolated, and then you have it flipped upside down. So if you have someone...
It worked on me.
If you have someone take either famous people's faces, if you're someone who knows famous people, or maybe have someone do it with your family, and then have their faces like desaturated to like black and white, and then flipped upside down, and then just show next to people, or like a line above
with
them.
none of their hair in it.
Yeah, you get rid of context clues, like beyond just like the face. If they've got distinctive facial hair, that helps.
Yeah, it worked on me.
But you're getting rid of context, and then you're flipping the face upside down because of the way like the facial recognition part of our brain works or whatever. Is it's very particular. The face has to be right side up. Once you flip it upside down, it looks weird. And you can flip the face upside down and then flip the facial features right side up, and it looks like a normal face just upside down. But then when they flip the whole face upside down and you see the facial features upside down, it's like, it's fucking horrific.
Yeah. I mean, it's whoever had the idea, whoever was the writer of the movie, definitely had something very interesting to kind of grab a hold onto. I think that if this movie would have had a slightly higher budget...
Well, it's also in 2011, and I think now that Where 12 years on, I think we know a little bit more about prosopagnosia than we even 12 years ago we knew.
I
I
I'd
think-
never even heard of it.
Yeah, and I think it's not really been studied all that much to the point where people who had it didn't realize that was a thing people could do. You would just kind of look at people and recognize them for their hair or the type of clothes they wore. Like if I came over with like a different face, but I'm wearing exactly the fucking same clothes, same hair, you might go, "Oh, there's Nick, but why is his face? Why don't I recognize his face?" And then you heard me and be like, "Okay, there's something wrong with me, not nothing wrong with him."
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I couldn't mistake you for anybody else if I had the condition, because glasses.
Yeah, glasses, hair, and just all black usually. But then if I switched up and started wearing suits and coming over and I cut my hair short.
I think the second you started talking, I would know, because you've got a very unique way you speak as well. So, but like I didn't even,
and that's how people with prosopagnosia get along.
yeah, but I mean, it's like I didn't even know that was a thing until I watched this movie. And I thought that was interesting. It was like, did they just make this shit up? But then again, there's so much we don't know about thinking meat in our fucking heads.
And I've watched like a YouTube video, and it's very interesting. Like, you can either be born with it or you can develop it. And if your brain is injured, the part of your brain that you used to use to see faces or whatever is like not working. They put people on MRIs and show them faces, and like that part of the brain's not working. But then if you were born with it or have developed it naturally, that part of your brain still works. You're just not recognizing the face. So it's fucking weird.
Weird head meat.
Oh yeah.
And what it does, who knows? I'll say that this movie definitely had some interesting ideas.
Which is why I wanted mainly to discuss it. It's got Milla Jovovich, and I like Milla Jovovich.
Oh, I know you do. I know that's your girl.
And it's not necessarily for her acting chops per se.
Well,
Because she's fine.
well, I mean, honestly, I am relieved that you gave me something that wasn't her killing zombies or,
Yes, just see her as what she is as an actress rather than her as it's like watching a Schwarzenegger movie where he's not beating people up.
Yeah,
There's not many of them, but he does those.
The thing I will say is that she is definitely taking the role seriously. Because she was very believable whenever she was like freaking out in certain places.
Just a good scared face or whatever.
Yeah, like the part where she was like frightened and then she like picks up the tea. Or like when she goes to put her hands on like the bridge edge, like her hands were like trembling. Like she made all of that very believable. So like I wouldn't say that she was not taking the role seriously in a movie that when you kind of look at it, you could tell that it's not like a lot of budget went into it, but you could tell she was swinging for the fucking fences on the role. So I'll give her kudos on that. But yeah, like the subject matter, the payoff at the end of it, some of the explanations of what was happening was just a little far-fetched for me. They went out of their way to like make you think it was the fucking detective, the good detective.
Like first the boyfriend, then the good detective, and
well, the very first thing that told me that it was the good detective guy was they went and interviewed the drifter.
and then he died like immediately afterwards.
Yeah, with like by fucking
By straight razor.
But like you get the audience cam where the person goes back.
You see like their face like ooh, and then you see like the arm raised or whatever.
Well, he does that. He says, "You again?" So it's like you just got finished watching Good Detective interview him, and then he comes back and he's like, "You again? Or what do you want?" kind of a thing. And then he gets his next slash, and I was like, "Okay, it's definitely the fucking boyfriend." So
well, I guess it's you again because he probably deals with a lot of cops showing up and being like, "Hey, get out of here."
that, or the detective showed up with his partner.
Yeah.
And and he's like, if you think of anything, give me a call. And the guy's like, yeah, I'll give you a fucking call, and like throws the card away or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like they went out of their way to basically be like, yeah, it's totally your new boyfriend that you should hate. And then you find out at the end of the movie, it's not him at all. So I was a little let down at that.
Yeah. All in all, it's an interesting concept wrapped around a movie that's not as great.
Well, the best part of the movie for me was when her girlfriend was like, oh, this guy's checking me out. I'm going to go hang out with him. Hi. And she's like trying to look through the crowd and she can't see who the fuck she's looking at. And then he calls her and he's like, you're the only one that ever saw me. And blah, and blah. And she's like, I'm calling the police. He's like, I got to go anyways. Your girlfriend is really getting anxious to like leave. And she's like, he's in the club. Bottle full of bub. Yeah, I thought that part was fairly interesting. And like to basically murder her, like in the open,
Yeah,
with the straight razor. It's like, okay, you can't tell my face, but there's a fuck ton of people that are around me right now just watching me open this girl's throat up.
I guess it has to happen in a club where people are getting fucking blitzed.
I guess, but you know,
Yeah, it's weird.
there's gonna be plenty of people who are designated drivers be like, hey, why did that detective guy's buddy just like cut that bitch's throat open? Woman's throat open. Sorry, I didn't mean to say it that way. It's just her friends. The reason I said it that way is her friends are very annoying in the movie.
It made him more memorable, I guess.
I guess, but like one of my other favorite lines in the movie was, "We're your best friends. You've known us your entire life, and you can't tell us." And she's like, "I can tell you by the slutty way you dressed and your distinctive hairstyle."
Yeah.
And she like touches her hair, like, "What's wrong with my hairstyle?" You know.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm looking up.
Oh, sorry.
I'm looking up.
Scores.
Yeah, I figure there's not a lot to say about this movie.
There's not.
It's fine.
Interesting concept, but I think bad execution. I think right now, with deepfakes, you could probably do a pretty fucking good movie.
All right. So on IMDb, we've got like 19K, almost 20K reviews. So a decent chunk of people
Wow.
have given a review to this movie. What do you think the score on IMDb is?
6.2.
Pretty close, 5.7.
Okay.
So that's pretty good. Now on Rotten Tomatoes, we have 5 reviews,
There it is.
which means this number is going to be not average.
Super skewed.
Super skewed in one direction or the other. What do you think IMDb has given Faces in the Crowd?
3.6.
So 36?
Yes.
0.
0. Out of six
Out
people,
of 5 people,
they all gave it 0.
none of those 5 people have found it to be fresh.
And those people went intentionally looking for this movie just
Well,
so they could give it a score.
that's the critics.
Oh, that's the... Oh.
5 critics. So not a very critic-reviewed movie. The audience, however,
Interesting.
has 1,000 plus. So
Okay.
still not many people, but definitely more than 5.
A more dependable...
Yeah, a more dependable sample size.
61.
This one's 34.
34.
So you're closer with your initial. It's like 5 people who reviewed it,
Damn.
and none of them liked it. Versus the audience, I think 34 is probably a little low. I think maybe the IMDb one, like 5.7, that's maybe a little high, but it's at least closer.
Yeah, but that's not, at least 20,000 people.
So at least 20,000 people have watched it there and given it like some thought, as opposed to like, I don't know.
Yeah, but like what critics were like, I watched this movie and they were like, I wonder what other critics gave it on Rotten Tomatoes. Oh, nobody's reviewed this. I'm gonna fuck this movie up.
It's from 2011, and I don't think it's a super well-known movie, and
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I don't know how many people were reviewing it. Hence why five reviews. So I guess if ever we do a worst scored movies on Rotten Tomatoes, this one's there.
Yeah.
Because I guess it helps when you have 5 people review your movie.
Well, we can't because now we've done
Now
it.
we've done it.
So
We've already gotten that one out of the way.
you want us to see us do a new series on here, a new channel on here, worst reviewed movies.
But even if we were to add our numbers to it, because I mean, how do they? Isn't then they just say whether it's fresh or not, and that's all that this website does.
Usually, yeah.
And I don't think this movie's fresh,
No.
so we would be contributing 0% to this movie as well.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I don't think it's that bad. That's why I like the percentage a bit more. Like I think a 5, like a 5.1 or like a 4.8 or something like
mean,
that
that's fair.
is a more fair thing, but that would turn back a rotten review. Despite me thinking, it's fine. It's got interesting ideas. I don't think it's a garbage movie.
Well, I mean, I can picture it now. Mm-hmm. Whoever wrote this movie, they walked in to one of their friends and were like, have you ever heard of this condition before?
Oh, yeah.
And the other person's like, what, where you couldn't tell someone's face? And they're like, yeah. What if, like, you watched a murder and got this condition and you couldn't remember the face? And someone was like, that's fucking great.
Yeah.
And then they wrote this script that on paper, it was fucking great. And then they got the budget and they went,
We'll try.
we'll do what we can.
What's our rigged budget look like?
Yeah.
$13? Okay.
Okay, we could do clothes on different actors, but I don't know if we could do hair. So I'm telling you, man, if they made this movie right now, it'd be probably an easy 8.0.
That'd be interesting. And even if it was they're slightly different. The idea of showing prosopagnosia by just making the people in it unrecognizable is very interesting. I don't think actors would go for it. But then at that point in time, I mean, actors go for voice roles. You'd be doing a voice role. Your voice would always be the same.
Well,
You'd get to try to like act via. It's not about acting with your face. It's about acting with your body and body language and shit like that. Because your face is always going to be slightly different.
sure, but like they would be in the movie plenty enough where you were getting the camera's point of view instead of the actress's, Milla Jovovich's point of view. Because every time you were getting it from her eyes, they were changing.
Yeah.
But when you'd get it with her in the shot of the camera, it was the actors who were playing the roles, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, but that only happened a couple times.
Oh yeah, no, it's a handful of times.
Which was mostly just the two detectives and her.
Yeah, but like
If she was in the scene with the characters, then they're played by someone else, unless it was Julian McMahon.
until he shaves the mustache,
Until-
he shaves the goatee.
Yeah.
But then she's like, the other thing I thought was interesting is when she was like sitting in his house, and she was on the phone with somebody, and like she looks down and she sees a picture of him that's not recognizable, and then she draws the goatee on it,
And then
she sets the picture back down, and when the camera looks at it, it's fucking him with the drawn on goatee.
Yeah.
Like that. It was
That's
little things like
interesting.
it was little things like that that really kind of made me like, okay.
And just other little scenes in there that were interesting, like her on the train running from who she thought the killer was, and it's like
Her dad.
I'm your dad.
What are you doing? You told me to meet you. Like I got a good laugh off that part.
Yeah, and it's just stuff in it that's interesting, just kind of wrapped around a movie that's just kind of like,
Yeah. So watch it.
yeah. I mean, it's on Freevee. I don't know if you having to watch ads to get through it it's probably going to make it a worse experience. I don't know that you would have liked it at all if you had to sit through an ad through the middle of a movie that you're just kind of barely feeling.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Hence why, like, when I saw it was on Freevee, I'm like, I've got the DVD. I'd rather him watch it without any interruptions whatsoever.
I think that was a smart call.
Because I wasn't expecting. Like, I don't love this movie. I bought it because of who was in it and the cover,
Well,
and it turned out to be like a movie. It's like, yeah, it's fine.
yeah, it's high ideal.
Yeah, good movie.
But I believe this movie suffers from budgetitis. I will say that I never fell asleep. I watched it last night at like 11 o'clock at night after everyone went to bed. I didn't fall asleep.
There's stuff going on.
Yeah, there's stuff going on, and it was interesting enough for me to be like, okay, who done it?
Interesting concept. Kind of introduced me to, like, I'd heard of face blindness before, but I didn't really know what that really meant. And it got me curious enough to be like, I wonder if there's people talking about prosopagnosia on like YouTube. So I was like looking that shit up on YouTube and kind of watching videos on it and that's where I saw like the little face thing. I'm like, oh, that really helps me understand. Like, you can look at a face that you've seen 100 times before and just not recognize it because it's presented to you in a different way.
Yeah, but it's just about the framing.
Yeah.
It's about the framing.
I mean, once you get the whole picture, it's a lot easier to recognize people. And I've always found that too. Like, sometimes it's just, I recognize people by everything around them sometimes before the face.
If you got prosopagnosia, you'd know me because of my fucking super stash.
But I think it's more of I don't have, I think it's probably the aphantasia that would probably sometimes make me recognize faces maybe a little bit slower, but I can still recognize faces.
It's just, whatever name blindness is, that's what I've got. Because people will be like, walk up and be like, hi, my name's Paul. And I'm like, yeah, nice to meet you. And the second I turn around, their fucking name is gone. And it's not because I'm a dickhead. It's because I'm ADHD as fuck. And I don't remember. I just don't remember names. And now, because I have to work with certain people, when they walk up and they're like, hi, my name is fucking Jean Pablo, I have to fucking like think of other Jean Pablos that I know in my life and compare that person to that.
Although I guess when I was looking up prosopagnosia, I found that there is people with the opposite of it, which they're super recognizers, and they remember every face they've ever seen. And that was also kind of interesting to hear about, like how they deal with it. They're like, hey, we've never met before, and being like, no, we've met before. It was you were in one of my classes way back like 26 years ago, and now you look like a stalker and weird. Just because you literally recognize every face ever. And they did another little thing where when they're showing people with prosopagnosia, it's like, do you recognize this person? It's like, no, I don't. And then they did what things that were super recognizers, showing you like baby pictures. Here's a person when they were 5 years old. Do you recognize this guy? And it's like, oh yes, it's this 70-year-old actor. or something like that, and they can look at someone's face when they're a child and know who they are as an adult.
They're fucking facial ID software.
Oh yeah, essentially to the
Wow.
better than, and I'm like, that's interesting too. People who are on the exact opposite side of it and still have it off because you have to pretend like you don't know people.
Those people need to be police sketch artists, like the ones that when the kids go missing, it's like, here's what they can look like 20 years later.
Yeah,
You know?
that'd be kind of an interesting thing to be like show them pictures of missing kids. That way, if they're ever walking down the street and they're like, "Oh, that's that person," because they've seen that face before. That'd be very interesting.
That would be interesting. Hey, there's a movie idea we can run with right there, Nick.
That's a TV show idea, maybe.
We'll do a movie, and then we'll see if we can get it.
It's the idea about the main detective as a super recognizer.
Yeah, let's do that.
That could be interesting. But unfortunately, I'd write it just like this movie, and as an interesting concept written around stuff that's just kind of like,
Yeah,
because I'm not a writer.
and we have no budget.
Yes. So I guess that's Faces in the Crowd. We can be done with this one.
This movie is now in the crowd.
Yeah. It's now a movie on a shelf.
If that we're not going to recognize in a couple of next time we see it.
Let's watch this movie 3 times, I think. This is my 3rd time coming back to it, and it's probably going to be another few years before I come back to it. Like I watched it when I bought it, then maybe like 5 years afterwards, and I think like 2 years ago I watched this movie.
Yeah, it's for me. It's a one and done.
Yeah. Well, I own it. It's going back on the shelf, and occasionally someone will be like, "I'm looking for an interesting movie." I'll be like, "This movie is interesting in concept."
I wouldn't say don't watch it, but I also wouldn't say spend money.
Yeah, it's free.
Freebie.
If you can watch it for free, go for it.
Yeah.
If you can watch it for a low amount of money,
$1.
yeah, then maybe if you have a friend who has it, even better.
Plex.
Yes, I think it's at least worth
Arr.
considering as a choice.
It's a movie that you have not seen
Yes, it's a movie.
or heard of.
That's probably the most likely. So, Lance, I guess that leaves one final question for me.
Yes. How was your Christmas?
It's pretty good.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, it's February.
that's true. Nick,
Yes,
have you seen Basketball?
I've somehow avoided it.
This is not boding well.
It's more of
Like
like
intentionally avoiding it?
no, it's just like
Like the pit bull on this sidewalk in front of you, so you
no,
cross the street?
it was just more of like I watched like South Park back in the day,
Uh-huh.
but somehow I missed this video or missed this movie. Some like not necessarily on purpose, but like I'd never gone back and watched a lot of Trey Parker and Matt Stone's old movies. Like what was the other one that Orgasmo? I never watched that one again.
Okay. Ooh, don't tell me that. Now I might have to switch up for that.
But I'd never gone to their back catalog and rewatched a bunch of stuff other than I guess Team America World Police and South Park is all that I've seen.
There's also Cannibal the Musical.
I've never seen that one.
It's really bad. Okay, well, then let's do Basketball.
All right.
And then I can just slowly walk you through the catalog of Trey Parker Matt Stone movies.
Maybe. I mean, I've not watched South Park in years, so I don't know if their humor still aligns with mine, but maybe.
We're about to find out.
We'll find out.
All right, well, can't wait to see how this one turns out.
I'm curious.
If you want to go ahead and give your guesses of the numbers right now that he's going to say.
I mean, it's a comedy as long as it's funny.
I think it is.
And yeah, I don't know.
Just don't fuck around with your iPad as you're watching it because there's a lot. It's like an Abrams movie.
Yeah, I try not to.
Or-
I try not to do that. It only happens when movies are like fucking losing me.
Okay, well, it's like one of those old school Naked Gun kind of movies where like there's a lot of little
the
things.
jokes around.
Yeah,
They're being serious up front, so you put the joke in the back.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on, and then even when the joke's in the front, there's an addition in the back.
Okay.
So
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what it is
well, next week.
next
It
month.
could be next month. It could be a train wreck. Well, who knows? We'll see.
I think the only downside is it's a comedy, so it's probably gonna be a shorter video anyway. Just because how do you talk about stuff that's funny?
Yeah, you remember this joke?
Yeah.
Uh,
Anyway,
well,
I'm looking forward to it.
oh, good. And thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for not just seeing us as other faces in the crowd,
Yes.
other channels on a YouTube.
Yeah. Thank you for not having YouTube's prognosia, whatever the hell it's called. But yeah, come back next week. Maybe tell a friend. Mm-hmm. Maybe click a like
Yep.
or whatever moves you.
Let us know. Have you ever heard of prosopagnosia before? Having heard about it now, if it's new, is it something that you're kind of like, we want to learn a bit more about? So maybe the next time you meet someone and they're like, hey, do you recognize me? And they're like, no. You're going to be like, oh, do you have issues with faces? Rather than just being like, oh, are you an asshole?
Yeah.
Maybe just don't think they're an asshole because they don't recognize you. Some people just literally can't.
Yeah, it'd be fucked up. It's like someone watched this movie or watched this review and we're like, man, my entire...
I'm supposed to recognize you.
Yeah, I'm supposed to recognize people? Yeah, like, whew, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
If they only see their mom and their dad because, they have like that certain haircut or like that certain facial style.
I guess if ever you find yourself looking at the things around the face rather than the face itself, maybe you have prosopagnosia, or so, because it comes in degrees. It's not an all or none sort of thing.
Yeah, it's something that's not talked about. We did a little bit of research. We found out that 98% of people have prosopagnosia. So
What's 1 in 20 people?
it's crazy.
1 in 20 people have some form of it.
1 in 20.
So yeah,
That's crazy.
it is. The human brain is weird.
Who the fuck are you? All right, well, thank you.
Yes, thanks for joining us.
And we'll see you on the next one.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.